Welcome back to SMAC. I'm here today with local vocal instructor and Alexander instructor, Katie Beckvold. Welcome to the studio, Katie.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What made you want to be a vocal instructor?
That is a story. So that was not my original intent to go into the music field at all. I originally was thinking of being a middle school English teacher, write books, and maybe do like musical theater on the side. But the summer before my senior year, things kind of shifted dramatically. Kind of starting with the passing of my grandmother and doing the show Hello Dolly. I met some really cool people and they're like, yo, you need to get into this. And I'm like, okay.
Maybe I'll get into this.
Maybe I'll get into this. But they said, you have to, if you're really serious about it, jump in.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to jump in. So I actually was thinking of going to Bridgewater State. That was one of my options. And I was going to minor in musical theater, but they're like, hey, I think you can do this. So I went into what I thought was my only, quality that was worth pursuing, my voice. And so I studied vocal performance for 4 years at Boston Conservatory.
Where you also studied the Alexander technique.
Exactly. So you know my story pretty
well. I do.
So that was also kind of like a stumble into situation. And so I took it my first semester, and it was it hit me hard.
Yeah.
It was a very strange experience because I did what I call a partial let go, where I was just like, I had hands on the back of my neck, something let go, but I wasn't ready.
Right.
I had this pain in my jaw for 2 weeks and I didn't know what to do with it. And I didn't want to ask for help because, in the world right now and in years past, when you ask for help, you're weak.
Exactly.
Especially
at that age. Yeah.
At that age, as a female, the whole bit. So I had a really tough time asking for help, but it just was too much. And I finally was just like, hey, would you mind helping me? I've been having this jaw pain for about 2 weeks. She said, why didn't you ask earlier? I'm like, gave her all the reasons I told you. And so finally, for the first time in months, I felt relief. And I felt like this cloud of really deep sadness was finally starting to lift, and there was like hope at the end of the tunnel. That was the first incident. The second incident, I retwisted my ankle, which I had twisted back in middle school, but never really took care of.
Of course.
Of course. And so I was wearing this walking boot, and I was running up the stairs with it because when she put her hands on me, I was able to move. And when I was in a production that year, teachers were like, I didn't even realize you had a boot on. I'm like, okay, this is something. This is something interesting. And so I was like, I'm going to take a second semester of this, and I'm going to decide whether or not I want to join the training, because I heard about it, and I could see that it could be something of value to me.
Yeah.
And so I went through my second semester, felt it was a really good time to start doing the training.
And for those who don't know, Alexander technique is mind and body work, finding hidden movement that's been trapped by tension and harm or trauma. So how does that help? I know you're also a vocal instructor, so how does that help not only vocal students, but just everybody in general?
So we all have tension in our body, which is a necessity. We really need that to be able to be upright, to balance and all that stuff. But sometimes we get the tension gets off balance, for lack of better words, and gets kind of pulled into one area. And that's what we have a tendency to complain about, right? We're like, oh my gosh, my back, oh my gosh, like I can't even more, I'm so tired. And like we're wondering why we're like so exhausted all the time, or we feel pain in this one area. 99% of the time, from what I've experienced, is because it's protection.
Right.
I think we all experience, and this can be a trigger word for some people, we all experience some form of trauma along the way, which can affect how we feel with anxiety, depression, being awake during the day, or sleeping at night. It can affect a lot of things because everything is connected.
Right.
So when we're doing this work, we're kind of discovering what are we doing subconsciously to cause this imbalance of tension, and how can we recognize it without being critical of ourselves.
Yeah.
And from there, we're able to really start the process of change in our habitual patterns that might cause all that.
Do you want to do a little example for people who have never seen it before?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
So thankfully, you've had a little experience with me.
Yes,
So this
yes.
is nothing creepy. So what I always like to ask before I put hands on is asking permission of my students. So can I put hands on?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Amber, I'm going to work with her differently than I would work with a new student, because she's familiar with this work, and I'm also familiar with her patterns. Not to say that they're the same every day.
Certainly not.
Definitely not. So each person I work with is a unique individual, and I will work on them based off what I feel is okay and based off what permission they give me along the way. So right now, what I'm kind of doing is noticing the natural rotation of the arm and how it connects to your front and your back. So if you look here, and you guys can play with this on your own time, thumb goes through the clavicle here, all the way through and down to the other thumb. The pinky comes through the scapula and all the way down through the other pinky. And so there's a natural rotation that happens in both directions. And this one's a big one for you.
That it big as in it gets quite tense?
As in, it takes a little bit of time to work through, where you're comfortable, because there's a bit of fear.
Yes.
Yes. And sometimes just as little is just enough. When we have more time, I'd probably have Amber go on a table and we work through this a little bit more, where gravity is kind of out of the conversation a little bit. So as you can see, I'm not really doing too much. It's very subtle movements, and I'm listening to where the student wants to go. So there's less of me manipulating and more of me listening to what's the potential of movement.
I've often heard you say that this is like a listening practice.
Absolutely.
What are you listening to?
I'm listening to the sensations that your body is giving off. A lot of the times I can kind of feel hesitation. I can feel defense mechanisms coming in. I can sometimes feel fear or something like that, or I can feel like joy and a release. So I tend to go in the direction and be a little more of the joy and release. And if there happens to be an area that's a little bit more protective, then what I do is I just wait patiently for the protectiveness to be a little less scared.
Does the protectiveness feel different in each person, or is it a general same feeling?
That's a good question. I don't think it's felt the same in two people.
Wow.
Because everyone perceives all of that stuff differently. One word or thought or feeling can be very different in one person. But because sometimes I feel fear in myself when I feel it in another person, like I feel it right here, or I feel a cough coming about, because I'm guessing I'm an empath of some sort.
Well, we knew that.
But it's just, think of it this way. You're clearing out hair from a drain.
Ew.
I know. This is where my brain's going right now, so there it is. You're welcome. And there's a part that's really kind of clogged. Do you just go digging in and try to claw it all out and pull it out at once?
No.
No, you don't. You pull it out gently, little by little, and you listen for the movement.
Yeah.
It's very much like that. We're kind of allowing the area to clear out so that it can be movable and balanced. And just like that, your head is movable.
That's so interesting.
I know. Who would have thought? Hair in a drain today. How does this arm feel different from that arm?
How does it feel different? This one feels, now this is going to sound strange to other people, but it feels more trusting. Like, I feel like there's more tension here because you've already done this side. So like, if you were to ask for my arm on this side, I would probably just like let you move it whatever way you wanted. Whereas this one, because you haven't done this side yet, I still very much feel in most control of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or you're trying to hold on to the control.
Yeah, hold on to it.
Yeah, that's very common. The other thing that people typically notice, especially when they're new to the technique, is whether or not it feels lighter, heavier.
Yeah, this one
Stuff like
definitely
that.
feels heavier because it feels like I'm letting gravity do its thing.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. That's very relevant. So if I went to here, I know I'm on the opposite side of where I normally be. Oh, thank you. You're so kind. The fun thing is when one side experiences something, the other side learns very quickly. So the one thing that I do want to stress is that there is no such thing as straight. And standing up straight, like posturing, it's not a legit thing because we're made up of curves and spirals down to our chromosomes, right? Double helix, right? Yeah. So if we recognize that, at least as one thing, as a thought process, it could alter how we pursue working with ourselves.
And how we pursue holding ourselves, you know, not forcing into this one mold of like, this is how I am standing.
Correct. You know? Yeah, you're constantly in motion. Your blood is always flowing, your heart's beating, your lungs are moving. There's a lot of things that we do subconsciously that we're not even aware of. So basically, at the end of the day, we're always in movement, and what we're exploring here is what are we doing subconsciously and bring it to the conscious level.
Thanks for being here today. Are there any places where people can find you online or social media?
Absolutely. So my main website is katiebeckvold.com. Instagram and TikTok are at singerkate14.
Okay.
And I do like short little clips and videos explaining the work. So if you want to know what type of voice teacher you're getting into when you're working with me, that's a great way to get in contact.
Well, thank you for coming. I had a great time interviewing Katie Beckvold today, and I hope everybody watching had a great time learning about some Alexander technique. It's a great way to unwind and check in with your body. So thank you for watching. This has been SMAC TV. Tune in next time.